Okay, so this might be the last video of 2022 that we probably be making, but who knows. But pretty recently, I just got the RetroFighters Nintendo 64 controller, but this time is actually for Nintendo Switch, as you can see for those little lights. So this controller, now let me just talk about this real quick. So this was like the first thing that actually will blow up to people's mind when it comes to retro fighters, because I saw this is like I seen a YouTuber talk about these controllers, so I thought, well, why don't I just get one to try this? And it actually was great. I've played the original version of this controller before, and originally it was always just wired. These Z buttons were always squeezable, and its D-pad on their first version, it wasn't that great. Thankfully, they made an update version where they made these digitally pressed, and they've actually improved the D-pad, which is pretty great. There's also made a wireless version, but I didn't have the great experience with it because when I plug in a memory card, it just never wants to work for some reason. But when I seen someone else do it, it was a completely different story, which I found it completely odd. But they did update to make it like as a wired version now, as version 2. But anyways, let's talk about this thing real quick. So this has two different modes: Nintendo Switch Pro Controller and Nintendo 64. By pressing this little button up here, you can switch between the two. And you also got your sync button down here. And there's a Bluetooth, it says too. So you hold down this button for a few seconds until you see these lights quickly flash, and then you know you did it right. But you have to charge this for the next 2 hours before you first use it. So let's talk about the experience of these controllers. This is much more softer than anything like that, which is a nice improvement for anyone that doesn't like that hard joystick for Nintendo 64. C buttons are much bigger, and we got the A and B buttons and the start button. Now, the original controller had a turbo button, and up here has the screenshot for, well, this is a Switch version, but still. Like, originally there was a turbo button here, like any of these two up here, on the original one. So, again, you gotta take like a few hours to charge this, play it, you're all set. Buttons, see what I mean right here? If it goes quickly than this, then it's good. Anyway, so these are digitally pressed. These are good. Someone back in the early days saw like a mess up if you hold L or this at the same time. It's like strange. So they managed to fix that, which is good. So D-pad's all good. And I played some games on the Switch with this thing, and I can say it's a pretty good experience. The buttons are pretty responsive when it comes to certain games. And it's like Mario Party, for example. So like you keep mashing them, there is no input lag whatsoever. I haven't even noticed any sort of input lag. This is pretty good. It was supposed to come out in February, but apparently they said, you know what? Let's just get them as an early Christmas present. Now, there's only 3 colors at the time of this recording. There's gray, there's blue, which is transparent, and there's also white, which makes all these buttons white, which I think is nice of them. So, if you guys are looking for a Nintendo 64 controller for Nintendo Switch, because, you know, Nintendo doesn't know what to do at the time being, because every time they put out these controllers, they get sold out immediately for whatever reason being, because I guess it's the most popular thing, and surprisingly, the Genesis controllers are still coming back in stock, yet Nintendo 64 haven't. So, if you guys are still struggling to find a Nintendo 64 controller for Switch, then this is the thing for you. But here's the thing. if you guys are going to connect the controller, make sure it's Nintendo 64 controller. If you guys aren't so sure, just press this button up here until it shows Nintendo 64, and then you're all set. And it actually plays like a Nintendo 64 controller on the Switch, which is to my surprise, because I didn't think they would try to pull this off. Now, I want to make a quick correction on this controller right here. Another one I got. There is Rumble. Just the game I played didn't have Rumble functionality for me, even though the game clearly said they had Rumble. But I don't recommend this controller for PS3 as of yet, because there are certain games that require 6-axis. But pretty soon there will be a 6-axis version exclusively on PS3. But yeah, this is also a Switch controller for some reason. But yeah, I just want to get back to that one. Another thing I want to say real quick is another controller I talked about before, and this is the red one now. This is the third one I bought, because these little guys right here that I'm pressing love to come off for whatever reason being. Don't know why. Whenever you keep squeezing them a certain amount of times, the hinges or whatever try to pop off, like towards the back right here, which is something that we really need to fix, because these little triggers are extremely small, and it goes to show its weakness so quickly. Like, I can almost see the whole thing without even me unscrewing the whole thing. But there's still a good controller, they just need to improve the triggers. It's what they need to do, which thankfully the team responded by saying they'll be talking to their developers about that. So hopefully they'll get that situation out of the way, because that's the third Dreamcast controller I had to buy. If that breaks again, I'm just gonna stick with the classic for the time being. But anyways, the sensitivity for this controller, I want to say, is pretty decent. It's actually functional, and you won't have any problems with this thing. You might have to get used to certain games and how you play with this controller, but I do think it's a great experience. Now, I've had a great experience with this controller with, let's go back to the original version. Rainbow Six was a great experience with this, and so are first-person shooters, which makes this, accessible for some of the stuff. Like, if there was a controls that are weird, then if you play with this, then it's better than what you see. Originally, you can press both of these, it doesn't matter where, but on Nintendo Switch, be careful, because you press this, you're going to get the suspend button, and then this one, well, this is just regular one. But yeah, I recommend this controller. This one just got a Switch release, so thankfully we got a solution. Oh, it's also compatible to PC, so if you guys are thinking about playing these on PCs, then there you go. You got yourself a controller to play with. And this is actually pretty good. So, do I recommend it? Yes, I would. I would recommend it, definitely. So, yep. If you guys want to switch controller lays, then go ahead. This is something the first time I've ever seen a company do. They would switch controllers, the layouts. Press this, switch controllers. Press this, Nintendo controller. Nintendo 64. Which is insane. It has its own charging cable, which says RetroFighters on there, surprisingly. But it's not I don't think it's the same Nintendo Switch port. But you still got your charging cable, which is nice. Again, leave this for 2 hours. Then once it's ready, you can play it. Pretty good. Really, really good. I would definitely recommend this controller to anyone that's struggling to find a Nintendo 64 controller. It's $45 plus. And, yep. 3 colors for the time being, and, yep. Just give it a check out.